All right, so we are live with our first keynote speaker, and I'm going to introduce you to Sundray Raj. I believe that's how you say. How do you say your last name, Raj? Right?
That's correct, yes.
Sundray Raj, and Sundray is the CEO and co-founder of SafetyWing, where they are building a global social safety net for remote workers. Listen, everybody, this is the company that I'm most upside on. As I said, they have the back of our community and they're protecting us. But the topic of Sandray's talk is how to build a country on the internet. What a way to start. This is going to be an exciting talk. We didn't just want to come in here and just shout at you. We want to give you value. So with that, with no further ado, I want to bring on Sundray Raj. You can see that he's sharing his screen, and I am going to leave the main stage. Sundray, have fun.
Thank you. I'm incredibly grateful to be here on this event. This is definitely one of the best organized remote events I've seen of late, and I've been to quite many. So I'm actually incredibly stoked about seeing how this is executed. So thanks for having me here. The topic of today, building a country on the internet, is in the far future of our company, SafetyWing. So SafetyWing is providing insurance for nomads and remote workers, health insurance and child medical insurance. That's our current product offering if you go to our website. But our long-term mission is to build a country on the internet, and the way through a social safety net is our way there. And today I'm going to go through why build a country on the internet, and also how we're going to do it. Okay, so the first is the very overall. There are 150 million remote workers today. There's a bit unclarity about how many are nomads. There are estimates ranging from a few million, 3 million, and all the way up to 25 and even higher, who are they are fully digital nomads. There are freelancers, entrepreneurs, remote workers at startups and other such things who live abroad. But there's already 150 million people who work online. And to my eyes, this is almost like a new nation. Like, it's the size of a large country. 150 million people is much larger than Canada, smaller than the US, to put two reference frames here. And it's growing much faster. So there's a nation of borderless workers that have the same needs that people have in countries, but that isn't yet met. Of late, you see the bottom line here, there's also been some big companies that are built fully as virtual companies, where it's a normal company, companies like GitLab or Zapier, which offers, Zapier is this thing where you can, without code, you can automate things, and GitLab is a service for coding buffer too. What these companies have done is shown you can build big enterprises in a fully virtual companies, and they're paved the way for other remote startups to go fully remote. Of course, now because of COVID, this is not unusual anymore. There are normal companies going fully remote these days, and us who are here and listening to this, you're the early adopters. You're already ahead, and the world is going to follow, but a bit slower. But that's the backdrop. And the problem that we're addressing, is that the internet is global, meaning it's like a global city. We can transact here. There are people listening to this in Bali, in Europe, in the US, in San Francisco, where I am. But the infrastructure is not. That's usually built along geographical divides still, where I can't bring my social safety net from my home country of Norway with me. And that was actually one of the reasons we started the company. My co-founder, Sarah, she was a cancer survivor and then became a digital nomad and a musician, and had the experience of that. She was so well taken care of home in Norway, but she didn't have that. And the solution we came up with was, how about we build a social safety net like the one we have home in Norway, but available globally as a membership instead, that you can bring with you across geographical borders. Okay, and why is that a worthwhile thing to do? Well, the main thing is that the geographical border is obsolete, but it's also a barrier to equal opportunities and freedom for everyone. So the internet is opening out the possibilities that people anywhere can apply for jobs, start internet companies, be freelancers for, regardless of where they are from, as long as they have a computer and an internet connection. And that's great. But that hasn't been translated to the social safety net yet. So you don't yet have that those equal opportunities when it comes to the social safety net that is usually provided by the government. Okay. Right. So that's the backdrop. Now, let's start by looking at what we want to do here. What are the elements of a country? So when we first started thinking about this idea, and in the many conversations we've had, people have some assumptions about a country, about what it is. A country, as you kind of research it and see what is the same across all countries, these are three elements that all countries share. It has borders. All countries today have borders. So how would a country on the internet work since it doesn't have borders? Well, we've come up with a couple of ideas. One is perhaps you can get it to be, you can stretch the definition of a border to be a membership, or you would work with sort of an existing micronation to sort of borrow their infrastructure. So you would have like a border somewhere or embassies, but you wouldn't have like a large area where everyone in the country lived within. Number two, it is recognized by other countries as a sovereign state. This is actually usually the key way that countries come into existence. It is that other countries recognize that, yes, this is a legitimate country. And where you have these sort of separatist movements, the defining moment is when other countries start recognizing it, typically because they have allies elsewhere. And how can a country on the internet become recognized? Well, we can do it the slow way, which is to sort of lobby diplomatically to be recognized as a new one. But here, the backdoor, using existing micronations or other very sort of progressive, forward-leaning small countries, we might be able to get in through the backdoor. Number three, it solves shared common problems, particularly in regards to public goods problems. So common problems are problems that everyone has. And a good country is one that solves those problems efficiently. Which problems that are, I would say, will be slightly different for a regular country and a country on the internet, because there are some problems that all the people wouldn't necessarily share. And they are best taken care of on the city level. So, for example, who should build the roads? Sort of a classic question aimed at typically at anarchists, which is if you're when we're by no means advocating for that, but let's say who should build the roads if there is no central authority, and the answer is cities. Cities can build roads. So we see in the future that when many countries on the internet start existing, it will still coexist with cities. But there will also be public good problems that are the same for everyone globally. Okay, so a little quick history lesson. How did countries come to exist, the countries we are today? And I think this is useful to think about for a couple of reasons. One is that we tend to see countries as eternal, lasting forever, because they seem so rigid today. But I don't know if you've ever, on Reddit or somewhere else, pressed play on some of those things where you can see how borders have changed over time. And if you do, you will see that there are massive movements and that there is nothing fixed about how countries are. And if you scroll back towards like pre-1600s, there are basically no countries, not countries the way we know them today, meaning nation states. And why did countries come to be? Well, one reason is agriculture. So even further back, 8,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, agriculture starting to get big. And we previously lived as nomads, all of us. Everyone used to be nomads, but then we discovered agriculture. There was a huge economic benefit to staying in one place, but that could also be used to finance the creation of a centralized authority, and that made it, reasonable to have geographically based countries and empires. But now with the internet, where there is no that big benefit to getting your income from a particular location, we can return to our true nature, which is to be nomadic and not necessarily to move around all the time, but to not be locked into one place for economic reasons. And then the second one, violence. So there is, in the history of violence, there is this balance between how easy it is to defend yourself and how easy it is to attack others or steal from others. And throughout history, that balance has been flipping a bit back and forth, and that has helped shape the rise of nations or their decline. In short, let's say when the biggest weapon is a gun, an aristocrat with a gun is no more efficient than a peasant with a gun. But once you've got bigger weapons, the state will typically have much larger weapons, and then it will be much easier to control an area. And that is like an underlying driver that causes states to have more power. Okay, so why make a country on the? Oh wait, sorry, I forgot to say one more thing here, and this has also changed of late. So on the internet, as many of you know, it is it is unclear how exactly a remote company, right, that is registered in somewhere, Estonia, Hong Kong, and is hiring freelancers who are, from Argentina, living in Bali, where their taxable incomes should go to. And that's something many of us, are all figuring out, and countries, will later start to figure out that they have to resolve. But the reason is basically that there has been a shift back in the logic of violence. So now, partly due to encryption, partly due to just the global nature of the internet being hard to control, that the balance of power is shifting back from the state and towards the individual. So that's a change. So why make a country on the internet? Number one, geographical borders are obsolete and impractical. So there is a pragmatic reasons that institution exists. And one key reason is that they're practical. So, for example, air is for everyone. It's very impractical to own air. But if we were built to build a base on the moon, oxygen would probably be a commodity. So there's something practical in how that institution exists. Geographical borders today are obsolete, meaning that they're built around a time where it made sense that everyone stayed in the same place. They worked for a company that was incorporated in the same area, and they interacted with services in that area. But that is no longer the case. The internet has already removed the role of the geographical border, as you all know, and you can now move around and earn your income elsewhere, use services that are different. And so you don't have the benefit, the use of organizing all our country services within a particular area is no longer there. Number two, a lot of countries are really, really bad. So there is a picture here on the right, the Corruption Perception Index in 2018. And I'm very fortunate to come from a fairly good country, Norway, and it's sometimes easy to forget, but you definitely notice that when you live around the world, as I have and my co-founders have, which is that many countries you get very little back for what you contribute. often because they are led by incompetent people who insist on, telling people what to do in detail all the time. And for them, the common problems aren't being solved. So the benefit of a country isn't accruing to them because their country is corrupt beyond belief. And a country on the internet is the possibility to get the benefit that a country can offer anywhere. The third is people want to have a tribe but don't have one. So if we think back, like, what is the purpose of a tribe? We know that we are tribal. We talk a lot about the negative sides of tribalism, but there is also definitely an upside of being in a tribe. And the upside of being in a tribe is it's not just to have someone to talk to, but it is someone you can rely on when you're in trouble. So when our nomadic ancestors were roaming about, and you were in an accident, let's say, you the other people would wait for you or carry you to the camp, and maybe even make sure that you weren't just left behind. And people want that tribe, and that is a human need. And also, it is it's fun and meaningful to have a tribe. But in these days, as you may have noticed, people don't have a tribe anymore. So our societies have become very atomized, and the identities people derive from a country are fading. They don't cover that need as good as they used to be. And same with the identity you get from work, especially if you're freelancers, people are less connected to the companies they're in. So the tribe of the future has to work for people who work remotely and live nomadically. Number 4, new technology opens up the possibility to make a lot better countries. So we mentioned already that some countries are really bad. But even among the good countries, I would suggest that there has been technological advancements of late, but the systems for many of these countries are legacy systems. They were built long ago, and they're not able to be updated quick enough. I know this because I was a policy advisor at the government of Norway, and I thought that was one of the best ways to contribute positively to the world, was to make better governments. But what I discovered is that even in a fairly small and competent country government like Norway, and with low corruption, things move incredibly slowly, and they are not able to adapt fast enough that the environment is changing. So new technology opens up the possibility to make countries that are 10 times better than what currently exists. And that technology is already there. It just needs to be applied. And while I can't say with certainty how, I would say with high confidence that the potential for improvement is large. Number 5, innovation and competition in citizenship would be good for people. So as it says here, countries and other monopolies are protected by law. It seems possible to fully ignore your users forever. And this is, of course, a tongue-in-cheek reference to a country being like a product. Of course, it isn't, and it's very different in some ways. But everyone has that feeling where, like, how can the country ignore its citizens' needs so much? Well, it's because it's a monopoly. It doesn't suffer any mass exodus, even if it ignores its users forever. When a country on the internet is built, and also already with digital nomads moving around and being more mobile, and internet startups incorporating or being able to incorporate in different jurisdictions, you will start to see that countries will realize that they're actually competing for their citizens, that they can't take them for granted anymore. And that, I think, hopefully will lead to more responsive governments and better services for everyone, because there's a price to be paid. All right. In summary, the first country on the internet needs, it should probably be built as a membership that is recognized by other countries, possibly in partnership with a micro nation, to solve shared problems for its citizens and solve them very well. It has to work globally so that it can be used by remote workers and digital nomads. It needs to protect its citizens from theft and exploitation, which in the digital space, virtual world, that means encryption. It has to offer the benefits of a tribe, like a social safety net of the tribes of old. It has to have a legal framework that works across territories. And it needs to make use of software and the internet, meaning it should be made for continuous improvement so it doesn't become hopelessly obsolete like some of our existing countries. And like any good new product, it should aim to be at least 10 times better than existing alternatives. Okay, so that is the summary of building a country on the internet. 2 words about why are we at SafetyWing talking about this? Well, it's because we are building a global social safety net, which is a key element of a country. That is currently, as you know, nomad insurance and remote health, global health insurance. We will, in later this year, come live with pensions, retirement, global retirement product that you can bring with you wherever, and for employees anywhere in the world. And we, by the way, a little sneak peek on that product, we're also making it so that instead of saving for a particular age, which seems a bit anachronistic to me, it's save a particular amount so that you can retire whatever your age, and your saving amount depends on where you want to retire. So if you want to retire in Buenos Aires, that's lower than if you want to retire in San Francisco. Disability and sick leave, and also income protection. And once we have all of this, we also want to create all of that, bundle that into a membership so that you can have the full social safety net while being a digital nomad or location independent person. But most importantly, and the reason I wanted to talk to you today is that we cannot do this alone, and there are many things that needs to be done to build a new world that we see as necessary, the new global community. I think it is useful for many of you listening to this to spend less time obsessing over the old and instead to build the new. And I would suggest that it might be the most important thing we can do to make the future a lot better than the present, because it will affect everyone. Everyone is getting online. It is possible now in this time window to build something that's much better than what we have. But if we don't build it, we'll just bring the old along with us into the future. There are thousands of problems to solve. We are working on the social safety net, but there are so many other things that needs to be solved as well. And if you build something in that department, we will definitely want to support you, because the more problems in this area that are solved, I think the more likely it will be that all of us succeeds together. So our invitation is that you would please do that. If you are considering starting a startup, start one that solves problems for remote workers and digital nomads. Thank you.